So for the second part of this critical path method talk, I've taken the precedence network that we created before and I have replaced each one of the circles with this block. Okay, so we're going to take our precedence network and we're going to add additional information, which is going to help us from a project management perspective. And this block is in your content online. And the block has a variety of information about the activities, the task name, which I'm just using A through J, how long it lasts, and these two pieces of information I've already put on the on each of the nodes. So you can see in the center block here is the task name or letter, and right above it in green is the duration. And so we're going to kind of do four things with this information. We're going to find the critical path, we're going to do the forward pass calculations, we're going to do the backwards pass calculations, and then we're going to find the float, or what's labeled here as the slack. Okay, so we have our network. I've replaced the circles with the squares that are going to contain our additional information. I've filled in the activity letter and the duration for each one of the activities. And then the first thing that I want to find is what's called the critical path. And the critical path is, where can this project not be delayed? Which of these activities have to occur on time, otherwise they're going to cause the whole project to be longer. Okay. And I'm going to, I guess, draw my critical path here with the red. So activity A is critical. If we don't start the first activity, we're not going to be able to start the next one. So we have a critical path that goes from A to C, right? So A is on our critical path, C is on our critical path. We can't delay either of those two, or we're going to delay the whole project. But if I look here between C and F, I have two different tracks that need to be completed, but after C and before F can start. The one track is building the walls and installing the fittings, that's B and D. And that one's going to take a total of 18 days. So if I look at this top route here, this is 18 days. Right. And the bottom here, at the same time, I have to do E. I have to make and fit the door frames. And that's going to take me a total of 2 days. Both of these have to be done before I can get to F. But the critical path is which one takes longer. So this E activity, well, it takes 2 days. I could start it right away after C, or I could wait a little bit. Doing B and D takes me 18 days, and the bottom one takes me only 2 days. So I can move that 2-day activity a little bit earlier, a little bit later in the schedule without impacting the final project time. So my critical path in this case is the longer path here, up through B to D, and down to F. Right? This stuff can't get delayed or the project will be longer. Okay. I can do the same thing here for once I get through F. I've got two tracks. I've got to fit the gutters and pipes, which is going to take me 2 days, or I have to, and at the same time I have to plaster the ceiling, fit and paint the doors and windows, and paint the outside. Right? The top one takes me 2 days. The bottom one takes me a total of 13, right? So these are on my critical path. These are the ones that cannot be delayed or the whole project will be delayed. Okay. So I've identified here my critical path in blue, in red. A, C, B, D, F, G, H, and J. If any of those activities gets delayed, I'm going to have more time until my total project is complete. Okay? So the first step is figuring out what our critical path is and identifying it. So we did that. The second step is to do what's called the forward pass calculations. And these are the earlies. Okay. How early can I start this activity and how early can I finish this activity? And we call it the forward pass because we start with the first activity and we work our way to the right. So we're working our way forward in time through the project. So how early can I start the first activity? Well, I can start it at day or time 0, right? And it takes me 7 days to do it, which means I can finish it as early as day 7. If I finish A on day 7, as early as day 7, that means I can start C as early as day 7, right? Because C starts right after A. It's going to take me 15 days to do C, so I can finish it as early as day 22. C leads to 2 different tasks after that, B. So B can't start until C is finished, so B can't start until day 32, or 22. E is the same way, it can't start until day 22 either. Okay. And I can keep going, so this finishes on day 32, this one can't start until day 32, finishes on day 40. This one starts on day 22, takes me 2 days, so it can't finish until day 24. So now I have 2 different paths that are coming into F, and I have to think about which one is going to be the earliest time I can start F. If E and D both have to be done before I can start F, I can't start F until the later of those 2 times, so I can't start F until day 40. Even though E might be done as soon as day 24, it doesn't matter because D isn't going to be done any earlier than day 40. So I can't start F until day 40. And I move on, 45, 45, 47. G can't start until F is done, day 45. Also day 47, 47, 55, 55, 58. Okay. So this tells me that if everything goes as planned, I can finish as early as day 58. Okay. Great. All right. I also want to know, perhaps, well, what if everything doesn't go as planned? I've identified my critical path already, and so I want to see how late can I start some activities without disrupting that 58 number. So the next thing I'm going to do is my backwards, what I call my backwards pass. And these are the bottom rows, these are the lates. Okay, how late can I start it and still be on time? Okay, so I know that I want to finish it 58 days. Here's my target, which means I don't want to finish this one any later than day 58. It also means that I don't want to finish this one any later than day 58. Okay. So now I'm going to work backwards and subtract my duration. So for J, if I can't finish any later than day 58, I can't start any later than day 55, which means I can't finish this one any later than 55. So I can't start it any later than 47. Working my way backwards here. For I need to finish it as late as day 58. It takes me 2 days to do it, which means I can't start it any later than day 56. Okay. Going back towards F, now I'm looking at these 2 numbers. So I have to start this one before day 56. I have to start this one before day 45, which means the latest I can finish F is going to be day 45. I can't wait until day 56, because if I wait till day 56, I've delayed the whole bottom row of my process. Okay? I've delayed G, H, and J, and I've delayed my total project. So when 2 arrows come together in a backwards pass calculation, we're taking the lower of those 2 values and moving backwards with it. Which means I can't start F any later than 40. Which means I can't finish D any later than 40. Can't start it any later than 32. And I'm back here. Now note that E doesn't need to be done until day 40 either, right? E doesn't need to be done until right before you start F. So I can finish task E as late as day 40, which means I can start it as late as day 38. Going back to C, again, I've got 2 things that feed into this, 38 and 22. I'm going to choose the lower of those because I need to make sure I'm done in time for my longer process. So I'm putting 22, 770. Now you might notice something. For your boxes that were on the critical path, so that's all these dates are the same. So for everything on the critical path, the earliest time you can start and the latest time you can start are going to be the same number. Right? So if you weren't able to find your critical path, look just by inspection, you can go through the calculations and the calculations will give you your critical path at the end. So then the final thing that I'm going to put on this is float. I guess I'll do that in green. Is calculations for float or slack. And this tells me, well, maybe I don't really need to do this at a certain time. Maybe I can shift it forward or backwards in the schedule. Maybe that would be helpful to accommodate manpower or accommodate resources. And so it's helpful to know if I have any ability to move this task within the process. And to figure out the float or the slack, I can take the early start minus the late start. That would be the top two, the first two. So I can subtract these two. Or I can take the early finish minus the late finish. Okay, these numbers will be the same. I can subtract either one. Right? So I'm looking at the columns now, and I'm going to subtract them in order to get the slack. What you'll find, because all the numbers are the same, is that there's no slack on the critical path. But there is slack. Oops, I put these numbers backwards, I'm sorry. Late start minus early start. Late finish minus early finish. I want to give you negative numbers there. Alright, sorry. If I look at the float or slack on E, notice the E is not on the critical path. I could start it on day 22, but I could start it as late as day 38. Which means I have a total of 16 days to play with that one. I can slide it more closer to activity C. I can do it right away. Or I can slide it more forward in time and start it a little bit closer to when I'm supposed to be ready for F. Okay? So I have kind of 16 days of movement in there with activity E. For F is 0, again, everything on the critical path is 0. I can't move these, otherwise I've delayed my project. But again, this I activity is a little bit mobile. I can move it 11 days. Right? I can start it right away on day 45, or I could wait as long as day 56 and still not impact the project. So that's what the float or the slack tells you. And these are all the numbers and calculations that you'll be doing in your homework assignment, identifying the critical path, doing the forward pass, backward pass calculations, and then finding, are there any of those activities in there that can wiggle, any that can move forwards or backwards in time without delaying the project.